Hey, PowerHouse people. We are in the house. It's PowerHouse Fence Show. We're back in action. Season 2, episode 39 this time. Plans, specs, and addenda. Details are everything.
Everything.
My name's Zach Shue. I'm the other host.
I'm Dan Turbyville, the other host.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back.
How's it going, Zach?
Pretty good, man.
Yeah?
Pretty good. Yeah.
So how you been holding up in the last week? Everything okay?
It's been going pretty good until today.
Yeah.
I woke up with a little cold, some kind of thing. I don't know what's going on. So hanging in there for the sake of the PowerHouse.
Nice.
Yeah.
Showing that dedication.
About 2 p.m., I was laying on my office floor. Like, I don't know if I'm going to survive. So here I am. I'll try to be my normal jovial self and bring what I bring.
Yeah. That's all we can do, man.
So
all we can do is bring what we bring.
That's right, man.
So we are here. We are live. And you want to roll the sponsors, or
let's run these sponsors real quick. Welcome everyone to the PowerHouse Fence Show.
Wait a second. We have something exciting to announce this week. These sponsors are going to blow your mind.
We are now sponsored by Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, and Simpalo. Last but not least, Thornton Fence Consulting Group.
Nailed it.
Thank you. A lot of practice.
Yeah. Told you it would blow your mind. There's a link in the description for the Thornton Fence Consulting Group events. A couple of us will be attending the Fence Business Conference.
Mm-hmm.
There's, we talked about this a few times, but it's a pretty impressive lineup of speakers out there. If you haven't seen it, it's been all over social media, so it's fairly easy to find. I think I saw that it was limited to 100 spots. So if you're thinking about going and dragging your feet, you might want to go ahead and register. And I would definitely suggest it. It's a good event. So have we been, you been listening to or reading anything worth talking about?
Nothing.
Yeah, not really me either. I did restart the Rockefeller Habits 2.0 book.
Cool. I'm on the same podcast. It's like the life of Ram Dass, basically. So he was 80 and did a lot of recording in his lifetime. So there's 300 episodes or something. I could just listen to that. Some of them are over an hour long. So I mean, I have a extensive catalog of material to listen to there. So that's pretty much a constant for me. That's about it. Other than that, I've been watching anime.
Really?
Yeah, Netflix is. Maybe they're just tailoring to me. I hear they're using AI now to kind of whatever
curate your
that's
collection.
Right, curate my collection, and I just got I was kind of tired of the usual stuff, and I thought this is going to be something a little different. You don't have to really commit too much to it,
Right?
And so, just for a little nighttime, that's what I've been doing.
Do you ever do this thing where you're watching a show and you like pick up your phone and then you're playing on your phone and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, what just happened?
Not very often. No. I'm not a big phone guy. That 14 minutes before this episode was probably the longest I've spent scrolling, looking at videos in I don't know how long.
Well, that's good.
Cool though.
I do that sometimes. I get distracted by something on my phone, and then I have to like rewind the show that I'm watching 5 minutes because I just missed it.
I feel that. I understand that too. I mean, I see for me, the desire to do that, the attention span, and like feeling like the need of, I don't know if it's societal or it's definitely in our field of work. There's always something coming on. Working on an estimate and an email pops up that needs attention. I try to just respond quickly to customers. And so that need to keep it moving and do another task or whatever,
So do we get distracted easier, or are there just more distractions now?
I think it's a combo of both.
Yeah.
We're maybe distracted easier as a result of more distractions. Yeah, sure.
Interesting. So I've been, I noticed on somewhere maybe Facebook or something like that, I saw Joe Everest talking about temporary fence.
Cool.
And so I went today and I found, I think he's got 3 videos so far talking about it. One of the comments said it, I guess, is going to be a multi-part series. I don't know how many videos, but I went and started watching that just to see if there was anything in there that I might find interesting. And so far, video one's kind of been like a real high level overview introduction thing, but
So
curious to see what he's got coming.
just to inform our audience, we don't do a ton of
Mm,
temporary. We do a little bit. We own some panels,
yeah.
and it seems like maybe we haven't really. Forgive me if I overstep or misspeak here, but if we haven't really tried to be real competitive in that
Mm,
in the past couple years,
yeah.
but we have recently in the commercial bidding process had a lot of requests to bid that. A lot of
Yeah.
temporaries coming across the desk.
So for us, it's always just kind of been one of those things that's like, we'll
Right.
do it if we do it.
Right.
And then I don't know, maybe a month ago, I was like, hey, I have an idea. How about screw that? How about
Oh
we,
yeah. That was like the 2 months after I said, "Hey Dan, what do you think about trying to be more competitive in the?" I'm just kidding.
yeah,
Trying
right.
to be more competitive in the temporary fence.
Mhm.
We'll do it if we do it.
So, well, it just takes me a little while to come around to it.
Right. No,
That's all it is.
it's all good. I've been
So,
thinking it though. I've been thinking I'm seeing a lot. There's a lot of requests, and I don't typically work in that with that, but
yeah,
it'd be cool to capture some of that revenue.
yeah, yeah. So we've tried a few different, like, I don't know, methods of pricing temporary fence, and we're just kind of like exploring that world a little bit, trying to see what happens. So
Mhm.
we'll see where we go.
Maybe Joe Everest will teach us what
I hope so. I need
Well,
somebody to teach us.
what do you do, Joe?
Yeah,
Call in. Call us at 901-878-4987, Joe.
yeah,
And or anybody.
or anyone.
Or not Bob. You know? Give us a call.
So thanks everyone who listens. Thanks you for spending your time with us. I know in this world where everyone's easily distracted and so many things are going on, thanks for hanging out with us.
Again, you're welcome to call in. The phone number I mentioned earlier is a legitimate phone number. You can call us, talk to us here live on the show, 901-878-4987.
Yeah,
Live on the show,
I indeed have.
901-878-4987.
Actually, I have the phone right here,
Perfect.
just waiting on you.
Ringing off the hook.
Yeah. So if you do want to call for real, call in. But thanks for being here. If you have any topics or guests or anything like that you want to suggest for us, feel free to shoot that out to us. I think Ilaria's got us basically everywhere. So
Yes.
we should be pretty easy to find. Oh, wait a minute. You're listening to us right now. You already found us.
Fence Tech 2025.
Yeah,
It's coming up.
I know.
It's going to be huge.
We were just talking about how we need to start planning.
I was telling someone the story of building the trade show booth
Mm-hmm.
and then hauling it. You tell me their business, they basically are set up to where they can do all their work out of the bed of a pickup truck. Ultimately, because they have to mobilize any time of year, no matter the conditions. They work in hospitals and stuff.
Okay.
And so basically their equipment is small enough that a man can handle it himself.
Okay.
And he mentioned pulling a trailer in the snow and ice,
Mm-hmm.
which last year leading up to Fence Tech, I in fact pulled a trailer with a 2,000-pound skid on it. That was probably a 13 feet tall from the ground, not before, while I was on the trailer in the snow and ice.
Yeah.
In preparation for Fence Tech.
Yeah.
Which was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It looked pretty crazy going down the road.
So, and then, was able to load that onto the bed of a flatbed to drive from here to Nashville, about 4-hour drive in the snow and ice.
Yeah.
Luckily, I wasn't pulling a trailer on the highway. That would have made me a lot more nervous.
Yeah. So, Shane Catton, what's happening? Mr. Zach Smith, sounds like we need some Milwaukee tools. In fact, we do, sir. We need all the Milwaukee tools. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'd consider wearing a red shirt.
Maybe
I
a
said consider it.
maybe a banner. I
I'd
don't know about the
consider it.
shirt.
I'd consider it.
So yeah, that was a crazy time getting the thing up to fence tech and all that when there was ice everywhere. And that whole parking lot by the hotel that you parked in was just a skating rink.
Yeah, I didn't even know where to park. I just pulled in and was like, wherever we stop, I guess is where it's
Right.
gonna land because that's
Gravity's going to determine where this thing rests
couldn't
right
see
here.
any lines, and it was just kind of out of my control at that point.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, it
was
was
fun.
crazy.
It was fun. I don't guess we'll be taking that thing to Salt Lake City.
I don't guess. I don't know. It's pretty expensive to get from here to Salt Lake.
It's pretty expensive to get it from the loading dock to the
It
booth.
is. It is. It's
So
crazy.
it's pretty fun.
Man, we're in the wrong business. We need to be in the from the dock to the booth business.
Right,
Whatever that
that's
is.
right.
That's the business we need to be in. So, today on Tool Time, I want to mix it up a little bit.
I see you're gonna introduce yourself.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
What's
Did
happening?
you want to do this? I know.
You're already in now, man.
Oh, okay. We're just mixing it all up today. Things are going off.
That's good.
They're
I like
crazy.
that.
So
I was reading. Hold on. I got to interrupt you.
Okay.
Just because that's
what we
par
do
for
here.
the course. So I found this note on here that's in red. It seemed important. Let me read that before we go too much further. It says, if it's
in
red, it is just notes for me for the future, not something weird to talk about now. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, never mind. Sorry.
So for the tool time, I just want to talk about our trucks.
Yeah.
So this process kind of started when I was like, all right, let's try making a budget for next year. All right. And so in order to make a budget, I decided I'm going to pull up historic data. So I made a spreadsheet that had 11 years worth of P&Ls running all the way across it. It's this crazy, it's wild to look at, right? Because it's just a sea of numbers. So made that, started looking through all of this stuff. And then I look and I'm like, holy smokes, we spend a lot of freaking money repairing vehicles.
Big time.
And so it's just like crept up consistently year over year. This year it's down, right? So it's about half of what it was last year right now. So that's good. But I mean, it's just crept up and up and up and up. And so I just want to say, like, keep an eye on the operating cost of your older vehicles and equipment, and I played this game for a while. I thought, man, we got these trucks, they're paid for. Yeah, we got to put a little money in them now and then to repair them and stuff like that. But then you start putting motors in them and you start putting transmissions in them and you start doing all this other stuff. And next thing you know, you're getting $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 bills on a truck that's worth $5,000. And you're doing that twice a year. Right. Or once a year or whatever. And I was like, so I kind of changed my opinion and I was like, nope, screw that. Like I can pay notes on vehicles for the same as what we're spending to repair some of them. And so we've just I've done a 180 on that thing. Right. And started trying to buy new vehicles and stuff like that instead of running these old ones. But at some point, like it financially makes sense to replace the vehicle instead of continuing to repair it. So just want to remind everybody.
That's
like
hard though when you're down a vehicle, and if you can run it to the shop and get it back in a couple days, and
it is,
that's a pretty easy solution.
It is.
It's easy to just be like, downtime, lost revenue, whatever you want to look at in that. It seems, just get it up and running. Let's go. Let's keep going.
So we bought.
So it's easier to what is it? Keep pushing it than to put a new. No, that doesn't work. Keep pushing it than to put a new engine in it.
All right. So I've bought 3 so far. Right.
Yeah.
2 I bought at one time. It took me a year to find them.
Right. Hence my point.
And then the second one I had to order in 2 different years from Ford for them to finally build it. Right. I don't remember how long that process was. Something like. Probably took something like 8 months or 10 months or something. I mean, it was a little bit quicker, but not much. And so it is a little bit hard to get vehicles depending on what you're looking for. But just wanted to throw it out there, maybe something to think about. So I think I want to do something since we're mixing it all up. Let's do something backwards. Let's teach Ilaria an English word this time.
Rude.
Yeah.
I know what he's teaching me.
You already know what word it's
Yeah.
going to be. So come on with it. The word is pneumonia. Let's see what you got.
Pneumonia.
Oh. So anyone who doesn't know, she tried to say it earlier and could not do it. It was pretty fun.
Oh,
just funny
really?
'cause
Yeah.
I've been
Sorry that I
trying to tell
missed that.
Will what Dan had, and I was like, look, I don't know how to say it because, like, in Italian we pronounce all the letters, but in pneumonia you don't say the P. So
Right,
Hmm.
I couldn't say. I was like, I don't know how to say it. You basically had COVID. That's what I told.
right. It's something to do with the lungs.
Right. So it was pretty fun listening to her try to say it earlier, and I thought it would be fun here, but it got ruined. So how about details, Ilaria?
Dettagli.
Dettagli.
Dettagli?
No, dettagli.
Dettagli.
Dettagli?
It's double T.
Is-
Dettagli.
I feel like she's yelling at me now.
Yeah,
I know.
she is. That's how it sounds when you speak Italian. Just saying. I hear her talk to her mom like, "Do not talk to your mother that way."
Okay. Well, I failed.
Yeah, you did this time. It's okay.
Sorry. All right. So you ready to get into it?
I love this.
Yeah. So earlier this week, got a phone call from a listener who had a little situation on their hands.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're going to call this listener not Jim this week, since we talked about not Bob last week. So we got not Jim who called. And not Jim had bid a job a while ago, got a contract, signed the contract, all of this stuff, and was like either in the submittal process or had already completed the submittal process, maybe. And so they were pretty decent ways into this thing, had a signed contract, had all of this stuff, and then figured out that not really Jim. That's Alyssa's suggestion. Mark Cobb, hello, sir. How you doing? And so an issue came up, and they didn't bid the job off of the most current drawing.
Whoa.
And it was like a fairly significant difference between the old drawing and the current drawing. Not specs or material or anything like that, but the layout of the fence changed. And so not Jim was like, what am I
What
supposed to
we
do
gonna
about
do?
this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said that there had been like a few kind of little conversations and comments and stuff like that that people had made along the way that was kind of a little weird, and like looking back should have been a red flag, but it wasn't weird enough to be a red flag at the time, is the way that I took it.
Okay.
You know how you hear those things and you're kind of just like, it's not, what? That seems a little weird, but like whatever. You know, maybe they're just confused, or I mean, they got 10 different jobs they're thinking about and
Sure.
that kind of stuff. So that was kind of how I took it. So it wasn't anything that was like a real giant red flag. It was just some kind of little passing comments and stuff along the way. And also, so to kind of like compound it, like this was a job that they had bid several times over, a multiple month period. Um, I guess the job, maybe was over budget or like things changed or whatever. The fence, well, they assumed that the fence had stayed constant throughout the whole process when other things on the project were changing, or like I said, maybe it was over budget or something like that. And then they just figured out that it was the wrong drawing. And so then the first thing that they did was they called the general contractor up, right? And they're like, I royally screwed this up, basically. And the contractor was like, I thought something was a little weird about the number of gates that you had on here. Like you had too many double gates, or you had 4 and there was only 1, or something along those lines. And so they, through all of this stuff, figured out something was wrong. And but they did say, which is pretty cool, that the contractor seemed like they were actually willing to like have a conversation with them about it, right? They didn't take the approach of like, well, you signed the contract, said you're going to do it, so you got to do it. Sucks to be you. Like at least at that point, they were willing to talk to him about it. And so they haven't given him any numbers or anything else, but at least they were willing to have a conversation. Is where, there's some GCs in the world that would just like take that super hardline approach and be like, nah, you signed the contract, you're doing the fence.
For sure.
The contract said that it was applied to all documents up to that date, and those documents were up to that date. So, they could hold you to it. And so in the conversation, I was like, look, go back and look at the plan set, the date on the plan set that you should have bid from versus the date on your proposal. Like, make sure that plan set they're talking about didn't come out after you had bid the job, right? So that's kind of an obvious step one. And then see if the plan date is older than your bid date. See if you can find any evidence of them having ever sent you any kind of addendum or anything else. Like, did they send you anything showing you that the plans had changed? Now, I feel like this is kind of a touchy thing because you know how some of the contractors will use like a Dropbox,
Right.
and they just kind of send you to they send you a Dropbox like at the beginning, and then you kind of like have to check it.
Continue to keep up with the link
Yeah.
to see if it's changed.
So I could
Right.
see that maybe being a possibility, right? But even in those scenarios, the contractors that we deal with, normally they're pretty good about sending an email out and letting you know that there's been a change and there's more plans or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that's always the case. And then, another thing is like, I never really delete anything.
You know what I delete is notifications from internal communication that comes through Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I delete advertisements from Northern Tool and Uber Eats.
Yeah, right.
And that's about it.
Right. And I too delete that junk, like
but mostly because I probably talked about this a little bit, but I can't have unread emails in my email, or else I feel like I've missed something. And I think that's part of that is part of this, what we're talking about, having some method of making sure that I'm not missing emails.
Right.
One is obviously customer service. Two is this, what we're talking about, addendums or attention or request for information from the contractor to update the scope of work or even the timeline, because that's happened recently. They were like, hey, we need you to start giving us weekly updates because the timeline on this project's getting close. We're willing to extend it, but in order to do so, we need regular communication, right? So yeah, man, I can't I don't like having unread emails. I feel like I'm going to miss something, and so I at least open them. Most of the time I do something. Then if it's something that's I don't need to do anything with, I'll delete it, archive it, whatever it needs, whichever one it needs to go to.
Right.
So applicants, I just have a folder that I put them all in.
Yeah.
I don't read them all. I just put them all over there.
Yeah, no, I'm down for like archiving things or moving it to another spot or whatever, but like I don't like to delete anything.
For sure.
I'm not that good at making sure I don't have any unread emails in my inbox.
You probably get a lot more than I do.
I try to stay on top of that, but it seems like a few get missed here and there, and then next thing you know, I got like 300 of them, So Isaac says, in my experience, contractors are always willing to work with you. I know of one scenario where we installed some stuff for free because we missed it when we bid the job. And another scenario where we didn't have to, we had to do some stuff that cost us money that we did not include in the bid because the contractor dug some crap out of their contract and just like dangled it and said, hey, you see this in the contract? Like, you're going to do what I tell you to do.
That's the tennis court.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've had a couple of nightmarish experiences with that.
So I would agree with Isaac, but I would change that always to most of the time willing to work with you. So we're all humans, right? And we all make mistakes. And I think for the most part, they understand it. And I think both situations I'm talking about was somebody that was brand new into it. Right. And I kind of got the feeling that like they're trying to impress somebody. They're trying to be all tough and they didn't really understand how the world operated yet. They were both brand new. So maybe that played a role in it too. But, and so that was the next thing that I suggested to who? Not Jim. Yeah, not Jim. I said, just call the contractor and talk to him and fill him out. And I said, you're not the first person, and this is not the first time that they've been in that situation, probably. Somebody else has missed something before. And so they're going to know how to navigate that, and they're probably going to be willing to help you through that. So, anyways, that's kind of a little bit of backstory to what led us to today's topic of conversation. And so we're just going to kind of run through a few things about, plan specs, addenda, and just kind of like looking at the little details that some folks might overlook. So first of all, I just wanted to tell everybody, like, don't be discouraged by any of this stuff that I'm going to say, right? It's a matter of like just spending the time and learning it and practicing. And it's like anything. The more you do it and the more you practice, the better and faster you're going to be at it. So it might take you a little bit to go through and be really thorough on a set of plans at the beginning, but like just hang in there, and that too will develop, and you'll get better and you'll get faster at it. So, you ready? It's about to get deep.
Yeah.
We're diving in.
Okay. It better be good.
I don't know if it's going to be good, but we're going in there. So, when you're looking at a set of plans that has fence on it, right? You found some fence, you're going to bid the job. I would say just make sure you spend enough time and know like a complete picture of what you're looking at, right? And so what I mean by that is I like to kind of understand how we would do the job if we win the job. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to walk out on a job site and find a bunch of surprises there that I had no idea were going to be there. Um, and that happens, right? But I mean, I just kind of want to like mitigate that. So I don't really want to show up on a job site and realize that the fence is going on top of a retaining wall
Or in a culvert
or in a culvert
full of riprap.
full of riprap, for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That happened. That's why
it
I
did.
was saying.
And this
And
whole
the installer called and was like, "Man, how the heck we gonna run this fence through all these boulders?"
right. So it is
It happens still. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's the thing about it. So
it does. And
Yeah.
I mean, all we can do is like try to do the best job that we can
Sure.
and try to really look at everything and know what's going on. But sometimes things just sneak in there, right? So in that situation that you're talking about, if you looked at the drawings, it looked like the fence was running along
Right.
the edge of the rock, not
Right.
6 feet off in
Right.
the rock. And so that was the surprise that we got there when the rock went further than it looked like it did. So, which again, like I said, things happen. But yeah, this other scenario, we show up on a job site, we have to put a fence on. And so the fence is on top of this retaining wall in the space behind the wall, but you've got about 12 inches between the light pole bases and the retaining wall to install a chain link fence, and the chain link has to go on the outside of it. Right.
Mm.
Also, a super fun time.
Right.
So, those are the kind of things that I like to spend enough time looking through the plans to try to avoid. And so I'd say, look at more than just like the civil or the architectural or wherever you find the plans or wherever you find the fence a lot of times. So, on the I'll go to the electrical plans a lot and see if there is power running to gates for like gate operators and just kind of double check stuff like that. And then I like to find something that shows me the grade too.
For sure.
Grade can really, I mean, as anyone listening to this probably knows, can make it pretty challenging and a little more difficult to install the fence if you get out there and the grade is wild and you didn't expect that. So that's another sneaky thing that can kind of pop in there if you're not really looking for it.
And I have made use of YouTube University and to learn topographic drawings.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at something, we were trying to determine the final grade prior to the final grade being completed at the contractor's request.
Yeah.
I think I was able to tell them to shove it that we weren't going to put any posts in until they finished the grade, but they were requesting that I do so. So it's like, well, I'm going to have to figure out how to read these things to figure out what that final grade is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun. We did put some of the posts in prior to final grade, and the end result actually worked out okay. But most of it, I was just like, you know what? I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, okay, cool. But when they told me to do it first, I thought, oh, I better do what they say because they're in charge here. But yeah, when I talked to the superintendent and then ended up kind of getting in with talking to the project manager both about it, they were like, oh, we understand your point. We're just the customer is freaking out and they want this done now. So we were saying do everything now. And
Yeah.
I was like, but it's gonna make it terrible for everyone. And it's
Right.
gonna make a bad, end result. The compromise the final product in exchange for getting it done 2 weeks early. It's not really worth it.
Right. We sometimes can get them to put in grade stakes too.
Yeah.
And just mark the grade. So we've done that where same situation as what you're talking about. Everybody wants everything done right now. And I'm like, well, I need to know what the grade is. Like, what is this? And so sometimes they'll put in grade stakes for you that can kind of help you as a guide. We got a comment. Always check Isaac. Always check the title sheet page for deferred submittal items. The fence is sometimes listed there. So there you go. Check the title sheet. I don't know what a deferred submittal item is. I'm going to be honest with you. I was trying to figure that out. Like, I understand those words, I guess, but I don't really know what that is. So I'd be curious to know more about these deferred submittal items. Where were we? I know.
Study the details. Read the notes.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to spend days on a single job, but spend enough time to understand it.
Yep. And like I said before, it'll get faster as you go along, right? As you get more practice in, spend more time doing it, like that will get faster. But
I think sometimes too we get into that and have done all of the communicating we can do, and we still kind of have to take your best guess, which is kind of scary. But I mean, at this point, unlike our friend not Jim, we've yet to sign the contract. Right. So sure, we can submit, we can send proposals, we can get up to this point, and there's still room to ask questions or, negotiate. Maybe even a site visit. I don't know, So
and I think that's where having like a pretty detailed proposal is going to help you out as well. Right. When stuff isn't clear, if your proposal kind of like details the quantities and the specs and all of that stuff and like the sheets that you got your information from and just try to cram as much stuff as you can into that proposal, I think that's going to help you when it's unclear. So Isaac replied, he said, it's usually fire sprinklers, things like that. It means they want you to submit and design the fence. That's cool. I don't think I've ever encountered that, but to my knowledge, but that is pretty cool. Yeah. So a lot of times there's like little notes on the sheets and stuff like that with the details. So spend the time reading all of those things. And then a lot of that crap will conflict, right?
Yeah,
so
for
you
sure.
might have an arrow pointing to the fence that says one thing, a note underneath it that says something else. And then in the specs, it says something else. Right. And so honestly, the thing that I want to do is just go to the most expensive option that they called out. Right. And it's probably not like when you go to submit a price and they're getting a price from 4 different fence companies and you go to the most expensive of the 3 options, that's the risk, right? That's kind of the thing that makes you a little bit nervous about doing that. But what you can do though, is you could go to the most expensive option. And then again, with a detailed proposal, you could tell them where you got that information from. And then right below it, you can submit like a value engineered alternate.
Right.
And be like, hey, this information was also listed here. And here's your price if you go that route. So I think that's one of the things that I've been talking to Claiborne in our office about is trying to do some VE alternates on things instead of just always sticking to exactly what they say. And it depends on the situation, right? If you're working for who you're working for or who the owner is will kind of determine a lot of times if that's even a possibility. So when you do have all this conflicting information, like what do you do?
I basically come up with the best thing I can.
Yeah.
Assuming that I'm not getting responses to RFIs.
Right.
That's basically it.
Isn't that aggravating?
Find whoever I can get a hold of to ask questions to. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. I've even called people in the company that weren't the estimator and tried to talk to them about it. Hey, I'm looking at this job, and they're like, well, this guy's on the project. I'm like, well, yeah, I've been trying him. I'm just seeing if you might know anything about it. I'll tell anybody these days, and we talked about that, like the risk of somebody getting upset with you. But I'm like, I don't know. I mean, does it suck to show up and be the guy that's trying to get the job done and do a good job? If you want, I think on the front end, if you're more communicative, then you probably will be equally available during the project. And I think that's probably good,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, man, there's so many different scenarios and situations out there, right? And it's kind of one of those things where like I don't think anyone has like a magical answer to that question, right?
Well, yeah, we've been talking just like specifically, do you bid from specs or do you bid from the drawings?
Well, specs take precedence over the drawings.
Some people disagree.
Well, I've had this was later on in the agenda.
Oh, okay.
One scenario that I know of, right? And the contract from the owner to the general contractor specifically said that the drawings take precedence over the specs. One time.
Okay.
And so I bid the job based on the specs. And I was like, this is the way it works, right? The specs are what we go by. When there's a difference between the specs and the drawings, you go to the specs. And that guy said, well, not on this job. And so for sure, I've had one scenario where it was the other way. But the vast majority of the time, specs take precedence. But so we've kind of talked a little bit about like, just filling in the blanks, right? And giving them something that actually works. And I kind of think I screw myself on this thing sometimes, right? Because I think if I look at a job and let's say there's panic bars on the gates, right? But it doesn't say anything about self-closing device.
Right. That's one that I think about a lot, actually. Is the hinges are never, sometimes hinges aren't often drawn. And if they are, they're not really specified. It's just
right.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, and sometimes it doesn't even show to use self-closing hinges or anything like that at all. And so, like, I'll just include them because I know that if someone has a gate with a panic bar on it, they're going to want the gate to close behind them. And so that's the thing that I'm talking about where I kind of think that I maybe screw myself a little bit on that deal sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'd rather walk into my meeting with the superintendent and the project manager and all that stuff before we start the job and have what they need for the job to actually function instead of being like, oh, no, I didn't include that thing you need. So the other thing, Zach's mentioned it a few times, is to ask for information, right? So you can submit RFIs. You can ask all the questions that you want. And I mean, sometimes you get information back from them, sometimes you don't. And that's just the nature of it. I've done it. I've gotten information a few weeks ago. The job, I had to turn in a price at noon and I was still getting answers to questions at 9:00 that morning. And then I've also had the complete opposite where I've gone in there weeks in advance and asked questions and not gotten any information back at all. One situation comes to mind where I typed up this email and I mean, it was like it had a lot of questions in it, right? There was a lot of conflicting information in the plans. There was a lot of missing information in the plans. And so I typed up this email and I sent it to him and I was like, look, here's the questions, right? And I never got a response. And this was, like I said, several weeks before the job even bid. And so maybe, 3-4 days, a week before it bid, something like that, I followed up and I was like, hey, did you get any information on any of this? And they replied and said, no, just bid it the best way you think, or, something along those lines. But then sometimes you can submit questions and they actually send it in and it comes out as like RFI responses and stuff like that where you do get an answer. So like I said, it just kind of depends on the situation and who all's involved and stuff like that in my experience. It's definitely better to ask earlier than it is to wait until a day or two before the job bids if you're going to try to get some extra information from them. You don't want to wait and be like, oh, this job bids tomorrow. I've got 17 questions and I need all the answers right now so I can get you a price.
Oh yeah.
Like you want to try to get that stuff.
That's assuming they sent it to you prior to 2 days before
That's
the
right.
bid date.
That's right. Which we also run into that a decent bit. There's a job that bids tomorrow at noon.
Yeah, you got it today?
Got it, I think yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
fun.
like, come on, man.
Sometimes we'll try on those.
Yeah.
You're gonna try on that one?
Oh, I try to do everything,
Yeah.
And so the third option or suggestion or idea or whatever you want to call it that I put down here is like, we talked about this some last week, but I mean, if you're too uncomfortable or the plan set's too bad and you don't think that you can bid the job and successfully complete the job, like you can always just pass on it. You don't have to bid everything that you run across. So, like I said, we always try, but that doesn't mean we always bid everything. We have a lot of jobs sitting in our decline to bid area in our bid board there.
We do.
So, but so Jeff says, if you don't get the answers to these questions, do you just qualify what you are bidding? Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit. And I mean, the best thing that you can do if you're going to try to bid it, you don't get the information that you need, is just make sure that you cram as much of that stuff as you can in the proposal.
Right.
And so that way, if there is a discrepancy that comes up later on down the road, at least you can reference back to your proposal and be like, well, I mean, I told you that's how I bid it. And then you also have the email that you sent them asking for information, right? Because once again, like, don't delete that stuff. And so now you have some stuff to talk about, right? So when you go have a conversation with them, you can at least say, I mean, you have the ability to prove that like you tried to do it. Right? Makes sense?
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
That's what I do.
That's what I do. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's better ways out there to do it, but this is
well, I think some of this can get sorted out through the submittal process as well.
Yeah.
So even after that, say the wording of the materials you're going to use that you spec, they don't read it very well. It looks like fence garble to them, and they say, okay, there's fence right there. And then when you get into submittals, it's likely they'll mark that up, and hopefully the architect or engineer, whoever is reviewing the submittals, will notice the conflictions.
Yeah.
And you'll get some, markups.
Right. Yep. And that's what you do sometimes.
Right? I don't like when they send them back marked up.
I don't.
Submittals to me are like my artwork, and they're my mom refusing to put it on the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dang it. I thought I got everything in there. I spent a lot of time on that.
Yep. Yes, I agree. And I mean, I prefer that like we have the information on the front end, right? I really don't like to get to that point and have submittals and be like, oh, well, that's not the way we bid it.
You've changed,
or get
man.
Marked up submittals and say, that's not how we bid it.
You used to be such a cowboy. You're such like a rogue. We'll figure it out kind of guy. You were. You were. That's the Dan Turbyville I know and love. Who is this guy?
What's going on here?
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm trying to teach someone else how to do it now.
Right. We can't really tell them.
Do how I do what I say, right?
No.
It's like you wouldn't tell your kids about all the crazy crap you did when you're 20, right?
Right.
You're like, oh, this is how I've always lived and behaved.
No.
Never said a curse.
I didn't say that's how it always happens. I said that's what I prefer, right?
Yeah,
so
you got to live a little.
Let's see. Jeff says, yeah, but submittals only happen if you get the job. Having a level playing field with other prospective bidders is a problem. I 100% agree.
It's hard. It's so hard. How do you know?
I know.
We'd have this conversation, once a week at least.
Yep. And so the situation where you have the 3 different options, right? You had the arrow pointing to the fence that said one thing, a note underneath the fence that says something else, and then maybe in the specs or somewhere else it says something else, right?
Yeah.
And so now you got 3 different options of what weight pipe to put on there, right? And so that, Jeff, is my struggle as well, because I always
What was
think,
that one where they wanted you to quote 4-inch line posts?
oh yeah, we saw that thing the other day.
And
And
you're like, nobody else is. There's no one in their right mind that's going to say, yeah, that's a good idea.
it was a 4-foot tall fence, all 4-inch posts, 6 foot on center, 2-inch top and bottom rail.
Right.
And I was like, what in the world?
I'm not.
And
I mean, it doesn't make sense.
so we sent them an email and said, are you sure you want to do it this way? And they said, oh no, just bid it like normal. That was their response. Bid it like normal.
Whatever that is.
Yeah.
Typical.
Yeah, just standard fence. Just put that standard
This
fence.
crazy crap or typical? Oh, that's good, man.
So Isaac says the key is to leave something dumb for them to fix in your submittal. That way they find something, but it's not relevant. Oh, so give them some low hanging fruit to pick, and that way they don't go after the serious stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try just putting some random thing
That
on
could
there
be
wrong.
fun to just throw stupid stuff into a submittal just for fun.
I was
I
actually.
hope none of the contractors I work with are listening to this. They're
I was-
like, that's that guy. He always puts something silly in there. I don't think they're gonna like that.
I was looking at some. I was looking at some submittals earlier.
Yeah.
That were approved, and I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, I screwed that up."
And they just signed off.
Yeah.
Nice.
We got a good question.
Okay.
From Jeff.
Okay.
Jeff Sorensen. Man, Jeff, you're a busy man this evening.
Tell us how you guys handled mobilization, specifically when jobs aren't ready when they say. It's a hard line to try to maintain relationship, but still make money and not piss people off or sever relationships we found.
So you're saying we pull up on the job site and they're not ready for us?
This is, of course, after you have sent a crew. Yeah. So that's the situation. They call you, they say, we're ready. You send a crew out there, you show up and they're not ready. Yeah. That is a super frustrating thing. We dealt with that a few weeks ago.
I yell at every single person. I yell at my team.
Just to be safe.
Right.
Just to make
I
sure
publicly
everybody
announce
knows
it to everyone in the office.
So we dealt with this a few weeks ago. Remember, we had a sub that showed up on the job site.
For sure.
The superintendent said, "Oh, I knew I wasn't ready for you. I just wanted to meet the installer."
Bro, you could have Zoomed.
Like, this dude had a whole fence truck loaded down with material and equipment.
My favorite coffee cup says, I just sat through another meeting that could have been a Zoom.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
could have been an email, I think is what it said.
Yeah.
But, we can do video calls, FaceTime, whatever.
So, Jeff, what we do, we have our outside sales guy, Mr. Kenny McKernan. He was one of our guests on the show early on. And we try to send him to the job site to put eyes on it before we send a crew out there. And so, as we just discussed, we got in that situation a few weeks ago, right? With a subcontractor that showed up, the job wasn't ready, all of that. So that just kind of goes to prove that it doesn't always work out like that. Sometimes we don't follow our own rules, but kind of our SOP is to send Kenny, have him go take a look at the job site, make sure everything actually is ready before we send someone out.
I have an Andres Gonzalez. I send Andres now. And a lot of that, some of it's the contractor. I have been working with one contractor that's kind of like, oh man, everything's cool. Just come on out here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, laid back guy and easy to work with, but sometimes like the dirt work's not actually done.
I know, it's kind of a catch-22 that like super laid back superintendent. On one hand, I'm kind of like, hey, it's cool to like talk to you and like you're a cool guy to have on the other end of the phone.
Right. We're not going to show up on the day when you want us to, and you're okay with that.
And be like, oh man, things happen. I get it. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
That's cool. But then when the dirt work's not done and we're kind of like, that hill that used to be there that we need to put fence on is now in the bottom on top of the V-track slab.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So a hill. So one of the jobs that we did, I think we did it last year, but we sent Kenny out to go look at the job beforehand. And it was like they had taken all of the extra dirt from the entire site and dumped it in the fence line, and they told us they were ready for us.
I remember this job.
And so there's like 40 dump truck loads of dirt across the entire fence line, and they wanted us to come out and start putting fence in.
We're going to give Jeff an answer eventually.
I mean, the answer is we send a guy to look at the job
right
site
beforehand. Have you ever back charged or change ordered someone for mobilization?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't like to. I try not to.
I know you're
And
you're not a change order kind of guy.
I mean, it depends.
Unless you have to.
Right. And I'll just let too much stuff slide. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
And there's some stuff where I'm like, that little, little piddly nickel and dime stuff, like we'll just do it. And so
but if the linear foot change, wasn't there one where the footage of fence changed because maybe the scale on the drawing was off or something? How far did you get in the project for that? Was that Oaks Edge?
Well, we shouldn't mention the name of any project.
Well,
but
a place.
Yeah, that the scale was wrong on the drawings, and so there was 700 feet more fence than what we thought there was. Yes, sometimes you have to. I agree, Isaac. Sometimes you have to give them change orders. And well, hold on. So let me circle back to Jeff. So the relationship thing is the tricky part of that, right? And so that to me is where the trick is. If for some reason we didn't send our guy to go look at the job site before we sent a crew there, so now who's at fault? The superintendent is, because they called and told us that they were ready. But I also feel like I could put some blame on myself because I didn't follow the proper steps and send the guy who was 10 minutes away from the site yesterday.
Yeah. And if it's happened to you once already, you should have a plan in place to not let that happen again.
Right. And so that's the thing where I'm kind of torn about the change order deal. Right. And
for mobilization, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it kind of depends. It just depends on the situation. Like sometimes, yeah, I've done it. Sometimes I'm kind of just like, oh, that sucks. Like you're freaking rude. But anyways, so
I don't know that we've had that. I haven't had that a lot, but what I have had is the locate not actually having been painted. Locate's cleared, but there's no paint.
Yeah, we deal with that a lot here.
So that's why I send someone, which is also helpful. But most recently, the mention of the dirt stuff is they're like, hey, when are you going to be back to put the fence in? I'm like, when are you going to grade the hill? And they're like, oh, it should be done already or whatever. So I send a guy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Hey.
And also the other thing about sending them is like, if you can do it a few days in advance, he can go out there and put white paint on the ground too.
Right.
And then that way that helps your locators when they go out.
We put the paint on before we call it in or shortly after, within a couple days.
Yeah. Yeah. But we do run into that situation a lot here in our area.
Right.
Specifically in the city of Memphis, where the locate will be cleared. Like you go on and look at your ticket on the website and it'll show cleared.
Right.
And then you show up out there and there's no paint on the ground. Right. Well, there will be communication. They're pretty good, I think.
Definitely data's the first.
Yeah. Your water and your power.
Yeah.
Is not going to, and your gas. They're going to miss all of those. And it's going to be.
I had one, this is off topic, but locates are just funny around here. I had one that had a note on it that said the gate was locked. There wasn't a gate anywhere on the property that would have prevented them from accessing the property.
Right. It's crazy.
So good.
All right. So it's 6:00 right now. There's still a decent bit. You want me to just like run through a quick summary of this?
We can make a part 2 of this one.
Okay.
This is fun.
All right. Yeah. It's cool.
People are liking it.
Yeah. All right. So that's what we'll do. I think we'll circle back next week and we'll continue on.
Yeah. Next week, we'll get into Addenda, general information to think about when bidding, and we'll just dig into this a little bit more. So thanks everybody for joining us. It looks like Alan Bolding is joining in right at the end there. Thank you, Isaac, for your participation. Jeff Sorensen, Alyssa Turbyville joined in there. I'm not sure. Are you guys any relation?
No, I never heard of her.
Mark Cobb,
Alyssa's
Zach
my wife.
Smith, Shane
Catton.
Shane Catton.
Shane Cotton. Yeah. Thanks everybody for commenting and hanging out with us.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for participating. We really enjoy that. So if you guys got any comments, questions, concerns about any of this stuff, feel free. And we'd love to have you on the show. You could call in and kind of bounce some ideas back and forth at 901-878-4987.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it for me.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Thanks, Ilaria.
Thanks for being here.
Of
For
course.
holding it down. See you guys next time.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.